On this episode of the Barricade Guard Show, I'm excited to be joined by my friend Matt from The Simple Catholic to discuss hybrid Catholic schooling, sharing the faith in a neurodivergent family, and how to model our families after the Holy Family. Strengthening our souls and our families are two primary objectives of the Barricade Guard. And to do that, we have to know the faith, live the faith, and pass that faith on to our children. Doing those things well can often present challenges, but we can rise to the occasion by cooperating with God's grace and being intentional with our daily choices. So today, I'm honored to welcome Matt Chicoine from The Simple Catholic onto the show to talk about some examples of what this might look like on a practical level. Matt is a teacher, a blog writer, and a cradle Catholic who enjoys reading everything from Tolkien, C.S. Lewis, and Chesterton, and is also an avid comic book fan. He is married to his wife Jennifer and has 4 children. Matt's favorite saints include Athanasius, Catherine of Siena, Teresa of Avila, Philip Neri, and John of the Cross. So Matt, would you like to share with us a bit about your journey and what's led you to where you are now?
Sure. So I'm a cradle Catholic. So I've always been a member of the Catholic Church, and my parents really set me up with a great, solid foundation. We went to Mass every single week. My mom would take me to Station of the Cross during Lent. We have devotion to the Blessed Virgin Mary. We prayed a rosary, not like every week, but it felt like every month. We had, learned about the saints. Went to Catholic school. So they gave me a great baseline. And then when I hit my 20s, after I graduated from college, I had these ambitions to be a university professor teaching. I got my master's degree in theology. When I got my first teaching job, that was a very stressful year in terms of a variety of things, just a new job and learning. All of that goes involved in teaching. But then we had a variety of family matters, including losing a child via miscarriage, which was very stressful. Wasn't able to really deal with the emotions and the mental strife and the spiritual strife that happened with that until like the end of the school year. And that's really the start of the journey of me as a writer. Is I knew I was one to write and teach. I just thought it'd be in a very high academic setting, like in college. And perhaps that's still on the path for me later down the road. But it really drew me closer into like writing as a form of prayer. And so I started my blog in 2015. I renamed my blog in 2017. That was probably the second major milestone, I guess, in my journey. We had yet another miscarriage in 2017. And then 2018 was kind of the year where I just really, my spirituality was really solidified in the saints that became my patron saints. We were experiencing another soon-to-be miscarriage, and we asked for the intercessions of some saints that we named our daughter. Eventually, we had anointed the sick, administered for my wife and daughter at the time, born child at the time. And that really helped solidify, re-strengthen my faith over the last few years. And then over time, it just kind of evolved where those experiences and writing about it just kind of provided that outlet for me to learn more about my faith and learn how suffering plays a role teaching you and growing you. And then it attracted other people that had maybe similar situations or were just suffering in general, wanted to know how God could work in dark times.
Very good, very good. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear about the loss of the children through miscarriage. My wife and I have been through the loss of one child through miscarriage as well. So I can understand those challenges. Kind of thinking back to the teaching aspect that you mentioned, I know one of the things that you and I had discussed previously was the hybrid Catholic schooling model. My wife and I homeschool our children, but I was curious to get your thoughts on some of the particular benefits of that hybrid Catholic schooling model as compared to maybe a more traditional Catholic school or homeschool model.
Sure. This is something I've been more aware of. I'm teaching at a hybrid model school in my own hometown. And it's something I never really knew about until last year as more of like a movement. But since I've taken this job, I've become more aware of this like as a model. I'm not sure if it's going to be a replacement or of the existing school model or not. I think it's really an alternative, could be a supplement to what is already provided with, homeschooling. There's going to be public schools, the traditional Catholic school, 5 days a week. I think it's great for parents to give them another option in terms of maybe they can't be full time stay at home parents, and this might be a way where they can kind of ease into that and still have the best of both worlds, I guess, in a sense. It's a way to just still provide that education, but if you're not in, because there's going to be people in these unique situations where they might not be able to go to a full Catholic school in terms of just a variety of reasons. And maybe public school is not an option for them. And maybe they're not able to homeschool. Maybe they have this ambition to homeschool, but they might not, they feel it might feel daunting to them to do all of it, find the curriculum, make sure you're balancing all of these subjects. And so this hybrid model can be a way where you don't feel alone. And I think that's what I think it initially started out as like a collection of couple families, and they organized into like a co-op. And then this seems to be the next logical progression. I've seen that from a couple other places that, a couple other people I've talked to. I've been emailing someone else who's starting a similar model for school, and it seems to be the progression that they went. So it's just interesting. I've never heard of this before, but I suppose with the need there comes these options.
Yeah, absolutely. I know my wife and I have been homeschooling our children ever since they started schooling. So for us, it was a little easier to kind of ease into that learning process of, okay, one child in kindergarten, first grade, and kind of pick up, ramp up slowly. But I can certainly imagine how maybe if somebody decides they want to move into some sort of homeschooling or hybrid schooling model, and maybe they're coming at this when their children are already into school several years, and the idea of trying to just pick up homeschooling for multiple kids across multiple grades right out of the gate, like you said, could seem kind of daunting and overwhelming. So
Yep.
for a variety of reasons, but something like that too, I could see how that hybrid model could be a big benefit and help. Now, how about, you have your experience and your expertise teaching in the classroom, bringing that back home to teach the children the faith at home. What do you see as some of those benefits or challenges, or how has, teaching in the classroom influenced teaching the children at home and vice versa?
Yeah. So I think, so my journey is kind of a little unique. There's a 10-year gap between when I taught the first time and then now I'm back in the classroom. I have an advanced degree in theology, and I'm grew up with the faith, so I knew all like the key aspects of the Catholic faith. Um, Going back, thinking about what my parents did, that kind of was a success. Like, I'm trying to replicate that. Neither of them have any advanced theology degrees. I don't remember any really deep theological discussions. But the things that they did was taking us to mass every single week. And it's this, I never had a struggle, or at least for me personally, I don't know about my siblings, but I never felt that I was like forced to go to mass. It was like we go to mass. I never heard them say we have to go to mass ever. They just said like we go to mass. We're going to mass. So you eliminate the word like get to, or sorry, you eliminate the word have to or we need to, and just say we're going to mass. It's just showing the action. So that's something that we do at home, and it's just modeling it. And then also we're incorporating a rosary a decade every Sunday. This year we've been doing that. There have been a couple Sundays where we've missed, like this last Sunday, we just ran out of time. It was a jam-packed weekend, and the kids are super tired, and weren't going to like put that on them. So kind of just recognizing that prayer time, you know, while I want to go do a full rosary, every Sunday, that's just not feasible. We're working our way up to that, and we're starting with a decade. Other things I do too is try to end the day like with after like our Angel of God prayer, ending with whatever saint of the day that is. And it's not every day, but like if there's certain saints that I have a certain um, that are appeal to me, like Saint Philip Neri, Catherine of Siena. Those are days we'll like insert their names in the prayers. For their namesake feast days, we'll do something special where might get special dinner. um, just extra fun stuff, I guess, um, and just highlighting the how the liturgical season comes alive. So those are little things that we do, and then like with station, we take them to Stations of the Cross. I have 4 kids, so we've divided and conquered. Where I've been taking, like, I took the girls last week. The previous week, I took the boys. My wife stayed home and they watched their brother Francis episode of Station of the Cross. It's not, I mean, the ideal situation, of course, is to take them all physically to Station of the Cross, but it's on Friday, end of the week. There's going to be some kids that are tired. And so something's better than nothing. That's the thing I've thought. And the main thing is if you take them to Mass, that's the basis. And then you can layer it on there eventually. But you have to first build in the Mass and go every week, and then everything else is additional. The thing I need to improve on is taking them to confession more regularly, like with me, and maybe dividing that up and taking just one at a time instead of the whole family. That's kind of the thing I'm working on right now.
Yeah, that sounds like some good solid places to start. I was smiling when you mentioned the Brother Francis Stations of the Cross video,
Yeah,
because
it's a good
we've
one.
used that on a regular basis as well here in our house for Stations of the Cross. So,
Yeah,
it is especially for the children. It's good. It draws them in, and it has a good pace to it. So, and speaking of the Rosary, yeah, we've had to modify a little bit when we do that in our family. If we're in a car ride, it's a little bit easier to do, the full Rosary, full mysteries, because everyone's kind of strapped down in a seat and not moving for a long time. But
yeah,
if we're at home and we're just praying in the house here, sometimes they get a little bit more fidgety, and so maybe we'll do 5 Hail Marys for each mystery instead of 10 to kind of help it go a little
right.
bit quicker. But yep, it's some of those tips and tricks for parents with young children, so makes sense. So speaking of some of those tips and tricks and challenges, how about working with children or for parents who are neurodivergent? What are some things that you've seen there as being helpful or beneficial?
Yeah, so my 2 of my kids are autistic. Our younger son, we used a visual schedule at Mass. So we started that, I think, when he was like maybe 2.5 or 3. We printed off a visual schedule, laminated it. We put like some Velcro, and then like there was like a little cross or picture that we just like had moved along every step of the Mass, and it broke it down into every step of the Mass. We would point and say like, okay, we're at this point. We're going to this, and we'd like whisper as we went along throughout the Mass. We also used a weighted vest for him to get that kind of compression. So that was a really great tool that we used when he was at Mass, because it was very overwhelming for him. The amount of people, certain Masses were busier than others. If there was unexpected things like, for example, a Palm Sunday Mass or any Mass where there's a variance of what happens normally, we gave them a heads up. Like, this is what's going to happen. This is what's generally going to look. And that's something I have to continually do as well. Like when I took them to Stations of the Cross a couple weeks ago, at the end of each station, there's that little prayer where they sing, at or cross or station keeping, those like little stanzas. The priest was doing every other one, and it was, I think, at the even numbers. And he was like, and I was trying to like explain to him that like the priest must have been shortening it. Just he must have had something to do immediately after, so he's shortening a little bit. And my son he was struggling with that because he's like, well, it shows on the booklet that it's this. And so that variance and like, not being prepared, because in that case, I didn't know what to expect. I just told him follow along in the book. So those are things that if there's going to be a variance in something, like even a devotional, like, the rosary, if you're doing it at home, being prepared with that and just telling them what the steps are, that's a big help, I think.
Yeah, those are some good tips. Appreciate that. Those will be beneficial for other people, in the situations as well.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I wanted to talk about with you too is one of the top articles on your blog. You mentioned Saint Joseph and his scripturally powerful but scripturally quiet presence there.
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering if you also talked about Cardinal Sarah kind of relating that choice to silence for a choice for God. And I know sometimes as fathers, it's a little bit easier maybe to try to embrace the masculine, maybe sort of aggressive kind of take charge attitude. But when we think of modeling ourselves after that scripturally quiet Saint Joseph, what is a good way to kind of understand that silence the way he practiced it, and to kind of think about how to practice that virtuous silence? Is it I'm just silent and sitting back and checked out and disengaged, or is it a silence where we're actively listening to God in that silence? How would you describe that and talk about that silence of Saint Joseph?
Yeah, the silence of Saint Joseph. I think of my dad as someone who exhibited that. When I think of the silence of Saint Joseph, I think of the word patience as the fruit of that silence. And my dad is probably one of the best examples of that. That's something I struggle with at times, and I just need to reflect on that. And I think if I took more care to be intentional in the silence, that fruit of patience would come more abundantly, I think. But I just remember anytime, like my dad only got visibly upset like maybe twice that I remember. And there was one time where it was like he was super patient. My brother and sister, and I think I might have joined in a little bit, not too much, but it was most of my brother and sister. They're arguing about like ice cream choices. And it was like over 20, 30 minutes, I think. And at that point, he just kind of lost. But like 20 minutes, that's not too bad. You do reach a limit at some point. But I don't remember him ever visibly getting upset like that. So, and we would pray every day in the car. I mean, I wasn't really privy to his prayer life. I'm sure he had some type of prayer life. I don't know if it was anything super fancy or complex. It was probably just going to mass. I pray, work. I mean, he worked in the same industry for like 50 years. So he just, that consistency of that work, I imagine his prayer life was very simple. Even now, it's like I get excited with theology and stuff. I mean, for him, it's like he's not interested in that like complexity and the excitement of that theology, which sometimes is a struggle for me, but it's just like he knows the faith, he just lives it well. And that must have been through that interiority. And St. Joseph is the same way, where he didn't say anything quoted, but in his dreams, he does reveal to the world the name Jesus. And that's really all you need to do is just reveal the name Jesus to others in your words and deeds and then in your thoughts, if you're thinking it in your thoughts. That really transforms how you live. Like we're called to that interior life and like the mass draws us into there, but like the continuation of the mass is like throughout the week, but it's in Eucharistic adoration that silence persists. And so my wife and I built in the first time ever in our marriage. I wish we did it so much sooner. That'd probably be the number one thing I would suggest to couples is build in your calendar, like immediately after you go, like get married, like within the first week. I know it's gonna be busy with like the honeymoon and post marriage stuff, thank you cards, everything else, getting used to living together. But set up in the schedule like a weekly adoration visit with Jesus. We do that every Thursday now at 6:30. Sometimes we split up, so sometimes she goes by herself and I go. But the thing is, we have a set schedule, so I think that's the big thing, and that's the thing I think that draws you into silence. I mean, he was a woodworker, Joseph, and he was working. I'm sure he was. There was times where he was just by himself in the wood with just the craft of what he was doing, and he probably had a lot of maybe just the natural sounds of what was going on around him, the saw, maybe some animals in the background, but he had that prayer life, and he didn't need to say much because his main goal was to guard Jesus until he could publicly reveal his ministry.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, thanks for
Now,
unpacking
mhm.
that for us a little bit more. That was one of the articles I definitely enjoyed from your blog there. So
Oh,
speaking
sure,
of
yeah, thank you.
Yep, speaking of your blog, what are some of the other themes and topics that you tend to focus on and address through your blog writing?
Yeah, so I really like to focus on the sacraments, the Mariology. I really have fun writing posts about Mary. There are times where I try to dabble in more that whimsical writing. So there's some stories I've written about silly encounters with my kids. I've written about just a variety of things, trying to tie them back to the Catholic faith. I've talked about boomerangs, cardboard boxes, tetherball, trying to like these ordinary things that can be, are fun and kind of quirky, and tying them back to the faith. My first blog post was actually about boomerangs in prayer. And I've written about hedgehogs. My daughter had, and this is one of my favorite posts ever, was she had this devotion to her hedgehog, like a toy. And then I got her at like a thrift shop tape dispenser that was in the shape of a hedgehog. And she drew a picture of this tape dispenser that was shaped with a hedgehog, called it Goldie. She had it up on her wall in her room. And I just like passed by it one day and I was like, man, this is like very similar to our devotion to the saints. She still loves my wife and I, of course, but like she has a special devotion to her stuffed hedgehog, and then this tape dispenser, and then that just got me thinking, like that's kind of like our devotion to the saints. Like we honor them and they're awesome, but they still are less. They're less than God, of course, but they draw us closer to it. So I just trying to find things that connect to the faith that sometimes are ordinary. And then I do like to talk about, the sacraments, Mary, the theme of voyage and the like bridges. Those are things I often come back to because Christianity is all about bridge building. And so I've often thought about the act of building a bridge, what the bridge is, like how you build conversations, build relationships, build up the church and unification. This year, I've been kind of on a mission to find Eastern Catholics to interview, and I've already interviewed a Maronite Catholic and a Byzantine Catholic, and I wanted to highlight the different liturgical rites to show how the church is unified. So that's kind of something that's just been. I didn't really plan it at the beginning of the year; it just kind of came up on my heart, and That's kind of been my goal this year, is to find as many Eastern Rite Catholics and learning more about their liturgy and their traditions.
Very good. All right, so I have a two-part question for you. So first, when it comes to the name of your blog, why do you call it The Simple Catholic? And then following up on that, if viewers want to read more of your articles or connect with you either there or on other platforms, what's the best way for them to do that?
Sure, definitely. So I originally had my blog called Prayer Recreation Organization in 2015, and then 2017 I changed that. I was trying to be clever by like promoting the pro-life faith and like having that acronym, and like my passions would be prayer, recreation. I love different like lawn games and board games. If you see behind me, there's a few board games that I have on my shelves. I have close to 300 board games, so I just love games, and that's like I love using games in teaching, whether it's trivia games, card games, different things to teach the faith. And then I love organization. I'm always wanting to like organize things. And that's one thing that drew me to writing, is just the way to organize information. And it was a way to kind of be clever about trying to promote the faith that way. But then I realized I saw some disunity in the church, and I was like, well, okay, I believe every official teaching of the Catholic Church. I'm just Catholic. And so I just came across like I'm just the simple Catholic. I'm simply Catholic. And I think Simply Catholic was already taken as a name. So then I went on the Simple Catholic. And then that's the first reason. The second reason, which I think actually this is probably the one that over time has just made the most sense, and I've been more intentional about it, is like my kids, when they were diagnosed with autism, I had to basically break down the faith very simply to them. A, B, and then even from A to B, there's many steps that I didn't really think of, or you don't typically think of, or like things that you assume or you think you don't have to teach, but you do. And so breaking it down that way has like transformed my approach to the faith. I think it was one reason why like I started sharing more shorter form content, like memes or short quotes on social media, different sayings that I came up with. It was a way to break down the faith because I had that need to, as a parent. Daily life, I couldn't like come up from theology from like a high level like I was accustomed to studying in my advanced degrees. And so that was the other reason where it became the Simple Catholic. It's like I was just through through necessity as a parent, breaking down the faith. And I think it's helped because now I can teach a faith to variety of people that are entering into the faith. And it's just a way, I think, to help unify the church. And I think it makes sense too, because now a fruit of that is my desire to highlight the Eastern Catholic Church and provide that unity. And I updated on my post or my profile recently, like I'm hoping to promote the unity of the church. And so that's just been something. I think it's a logical progression of my name change from those years ago.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thanks for sharing that story and that journey with us. I really appreciate you being here with us today on the Barricade Guard Show and for sharing your experiences living out Catholic family life. So thanks again for being with us today, Matt. I really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you. And then you can find me at thesimplecatholic on Instagram, and then my website is just thesimplecatholic.blog. And then those are the two primary ways. I'm also on LinkedIn too. You can follow me on LinkedIn as well. I'm occasionally there.
Very good. I'll be sure to link to all those in the show notes for anyone watching. Well, Matt, thanks again for joining the Barricade Guard Show and sharing your experiences living out Catholic family life. I know I've enjoyed the discussion, and hopefully the viewers found it helpful as well.
Yeah, thanks, John, for having me on.
All right. Talk to you soon. Have a good one.
Yes, you too.
And don't forget to check out my Blackout Rosary giveaway video. Leave a comment and subscribe. As soon as I get 50 new subscribers to that video, or reach 1,000 subscribers on this channel, I'll be giving away this incredible St. Joseph and St. Michael Blackout Edition Rosary, along with this Barricade Rosary pouch. Be sure to let me know in the comments below what you do to teach the faith in your family, and what are the biggest challenges you're facing at the moment. Also, if you found this video helpful, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might benefit from it as well. And don't forget to follow the Barricade Guard on Facebook, X, and Instagram. The links are in the show notes below. And until next time, fortify your soul, body, and family.